on to item 6.2, our presentation of proclamation designating the month of June 2021 as LGBTQ+ Pride Month, and I will go ahead and just read it from here. Proclamation designated the month of June 2021 as LGBTQ+ Pride Month. Whereas, our nation was founded on the principle of equal rights for all people, but the fulfillment of this promise has been long in coming for many Americans. Some of the most inspiring moments in our history have arisen from the various civil rights movements that have brought one group after another from the margins to the mainstream of American society. And whereas, in the movement towards equal rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender LGBTQ+ people, a historic turning point occurred on June 28, 1969 in New York City with the onset of the Stonewall Riots. During these riots, LGBTQ+ citizens rose up and resisted police harassment that arose out of discriminatory criminal laws that have since been declared unconstitutional. In the 4 decades since, civil rights for LGBTQ+ people have grown substantially, and LGBTQ+ pride celebrations have taken place around the country every June to commemorate the beginning of the Stonewall Riots. And whereas California has been a leader in advancing the civil rights of its LGBTQ+ citizens, and while further progress is needed, it is important to recognize and celebrate the substantial gains that have been achieved. And whereas LGBTQ+ residents in Lake County represent our families, our friends, our neighbors, our teachers, our employees, and our community leaders. Across all religions, races, and communities, there are LGBTQ+ people helping our nation to become a more perfect union in reaching our ideals proclaimed in our Declaration of Independence, that all people are created equal and therefore deserve to be embraced and treated as equals. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Board of Supervisors of the County of Lake does hereby proclaim June 2021 as LGBTQ+ Pride Month in Lake County, and calls upon its residents to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists and celebrate the diversity of our community. Passed and adopted this 15th day of June 2021. And I believe, from what I gathered from staff, that this is the first time that we have done an LGBTQ Pride proclamation, and I hope this is the first of an annual custom that we get ourselves into. I think it's important to celebrate the positive changes that we've had in our country, in our state, and in our communities. And so I'm happy to make that change for us this time. And thank you to staff. I also have a pride flag to put on our dais for the month of June. Any comments or questions before we move on? Please.
I appreciate you bringing this, and I also hope this is the first, we don't miss it. We keep going with this proclamation every year, and I would like to see, I love the little flag. I think it's a great gesture, but I would like us to get a big flag on the outside of the building next year.
And we're going to pause the conversation before we continue and people miss out. There seems to be some technical difficulties. So let's go ahead and take a, Sam, 5 minutes?
We're not sure. Johanna reported the problem. It's a Granicus issue, so give us just a second so I can bring Sam into a little bit. No 5-minute break then?
Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 9:16. Just real quick announcement. We seem to have some technological issues here with our Granicus. So if you were watching the meeting and you can't seem to find it, hopefully you found another way to hear this, or else this is a moot point, but you can still join Zoom. That link would be found on our agenda, which can be found on our website, or you can watch us live on Facebook. We will no longer be live on Granicus, but we will upload the video once this is completed, as we are still recording, and we'll be able to upload that later today. Again, if you are in the Zoom room, you are able to provide public input, and if you want to raise your hand, click the button at the bottom of your screen, or else dial *9 if you are here via telephone. And with that, let's go ahead and move on. I do see a hand from our CAO, Hutchinson, which I am wondering if that's a test.
From the past, so sorry.
I was just tested. Okay, so we are moving on. We were actually in the midst of a conversation, and I want to bring it back to Supervisor Pyska, who was asking about a potential placement of a flag. And I just wanted to say that there are policies on flags. There are policies also on lowering the flag. And so I think that we need to bring those back before making any decisions of what to add, so that we make sure that we have the rules done correctly rather than just what we feel for the day would be appropriate. That way we make sure that inappropriate things do not get requested to us.
And I appreciate that, and we have a year to get that right.
Absolutely. Any further comment from anyone? Yes, Supervisor Scott.
I definitely agree with Supervisor Pyska that we need to be looking at that and seeing what we need to do to change our rules to be able to see if we can fly that flag next year. As you pointed out, a lot of progress has been made, but more work needs to be done. And I appreciate you and thank you for bringing this forward today.
Yep. And I like the shirt. It reminds me of the Tour de France that you get. If you're the best climber on the mountain, you get the rainbow shirt too. Any further comments from any board members before we move on? Please, Supervisor Simon.
You know, obviously, I agree with the rest of the board. All inclusiveness here in Lake County, that's where we're going towards. You know, obviously understanding people's cultures, you know, everything about everybody, you know. So individuality is something needs to be celebrated and always brought, you know, and supported. So thank you very much. I greatly appreciate you bringing this. And just one more step forward for the folks here in Lake County and the board being all-inclusive for all of our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Crandall.
Yes, I think this is a great thing, and really glad we did it, because I believe in respecting all human beings and giving reciprocation, so.
Thank you. Since we went around and had a conversation, just want to quickly open it up for the public. Any comments on this Pride Proclamation? And seeing none in the boardroom and none in the Zoom room, we'll go ahead and bring it back. And we're going to move on to item 6.3, 9:45 a.m.